Welcome to Time Travelling Team, the podcast where we review every episode of Doctor Who right from the very beginning. I'm Tricia.
And I'm Paddy. This week we join the Doctor and Peri as they face an old foe and meet a new one in The Mark of the Rani. As usual, we'll be discussing the Doctor, companions and villains and giving your thoughts on the story as a whole.
We'd also love to hear your thoughts on the story, so as always, to join the discussion, you can check us out at Time Team across the various different social platforms, or you can email us at timetravelingteam@teamproductions.com. Now, Paddy, would you please do me the honour of recapping the story? Thank you.
I will indeed. Part 1. In the English village of Killingworth in the early 19th century, a group of miners finished their shift and retired to the local bathhouse. However, the room fills with gas and they collapse to the floor. A short while later, they wake up fully clean and freshly dressed. They then begin to run rampant through the village, pushing people to the ground and vandalising property. Elsewhere, in the TARDIS, the Doctor says that the TARDIS is being manoeuvred away from their intended target and gets angry when Peri suggests that it might be another malfunction. He insists that the ship is running fine and that they are landing in the correct time period, but some forces change the location. He says that he has detected a temporal distortion in the area and says it belongs to another time machine. They land in the coalfields outside Killingworth, and the Doctor begins to track the source of the distortion. As they go on, the Doctor notices that there is no sign of any wildlife. Peri says that it must be because of the nearby scarecrow and suggests that they continue on. Unbeknownst to them, the scarecrow watches them leave. They suddenly hear a commotion from nearby and rush to a road where they see the men from the bathhouse vandalising a wagon and the cargo of machinery before fleeing into the woods. Peri goes to help the driver, who says that he is fine and it was the machinery that they were after, as they were afraid it would take their jobs. The Doctor is skeptical and notices one of the attackers on the ground nearby. He goes to help the man and notices an unusual red mark on his neck. The man, who the driver identifies as Jack Ward, flees down the road, ignoring their calls to come back. The Doctor says that his employer, Mr. Stevenson, won't be happy about the damage to the machinery. The Doctor asks if he is actually George Stevenson, and the driver says that he is. The Doctor, knowing that Stevenson will be the renowned engineer that will be responsible for the upcoming advancements in rail travel, eagerly says to Peri that they should meet him. They arrive in the village a short while later, and the Doctor asks where Stevenson is. The driver says that he will be at the mine, and the Doctor and Peri head off. Meanwhile, more men enter the bathhouse, and the old woman running it fails to notice the scarecrow appear nearby. The scarecrow then removes its clothes, revealing it to be the Master. A short while later, the Doctor and Peri arrive at the mine pit to find it heavily guarded. They are accosted by a guard who says that no one can get in without a pass. Peri says that they have been travelling, so their pass never got to them, and the guard says their names need to be on the list. The Doctor takes the list and sees that it is filled with the names like Michael Faraday and Humphrey Davy, men that will become key figures in the Industrial Revolution. The Doctor says that he is an inventor and holds up his futuristic scanning device. Noting the guard's skepticism, Peri says the Doctor is a tad eccentric. The guard takes him to the office, leaving them at the mercy of his guard dog whilst he goes off to fetch Stevenson. The Doctor tries to get past the guard, but to no avail, and Peri asks why he is so certain that something is wrong. The Doctor says that according to the date he saw on the list, there will be a meeting in a few days that will change the course of human history. He says that nothing must change that, and he needs to find the source of the temporal distortion. Suddenly, the dog leaves and goes to the gate, where it sees the Master trying to get in. The dog barks at him, and the Master kills it with his tissue decompressor, as well as a guard that was drawn by the sound. Retreating back to the village, the Master encounters the group of men from the bathhouse, and they threaten him, thinking that he is there for the meeting. The Master convinces them that the Doctor is the real threat, and they head to the pit to attack him. They find the Doctor near the entrance to the mine shaft, and he tells Peri to run. They try to force him into the pit, and Peri calls for help whilst trying to save the Doctor. A gunshot suddenly causes the Vandals to stop attacking, and they flee as a well-dressed man approaches them with a group of guards. The Doctor is pulled to safety, and the man, who introduces himself as Lord Ravensworth, demands that the Doctor and Peri follow him so that he can find out who they are. In his office, Ravensworth says that he knows the men who attacked the Doctor and is surprised by their recent aggressive attacks. He chalks it up to the Luddite movement, which is resisting the technological advancements of recent years, but he is still surprised it has escalated to near murder. He comments on the unusual trend that it always seems to be men who have been acting this way and not the women. A group of women then arrive and beg Ravensworth to help them find their husbands, who have recently gone missing. Peri takes the Doctor aside and says that they should leave, highlighting the danger that he is in. However, the Doctor reminds her of the temporal distortion, suggesting that whoever is behind it is also responsible for the attacks. Meanwhile, the Master sneaks into the bathhouse where he observes more men being taken into a secret lab being experimented on by an old woman. The Master approaches her, greeting her as the Rani, a fellow Time Lord. She shows disgust at his presence and says that she knows why he is here, having also seen the Doctor when he arrived in the village. The Master says that they should cooperate to deal with him, but the Rani refuses. The Master then proceeds to sabotage her equipment and kills one of her guards when they try to stop him. The Rani tells the remaining guard to stop and agrees to hear the Master's proposal. He notices a tray of glowing maggots nearby, and she reveals that she has been using the genetically modified creatures to control the men when they come into the bathhouse. The Master takes a sample tray, saying that he can use it later. The Rani goes back to her experiments, saying the Master's petty goals of destroying the Doctor and galactic conquest don't interest her. The Master notices that she is extracting fluid from her test subjects' brains and threatens to destroy the gathered stockpiles unless she reveals her purpose. She explains that she tried to elevate the mental capacity of the natives of the planet she rules, but they became mentally unstable as a result. She reveals that the extracted fluid is the only thing that can counteract the imbalance, and that the resulting aggression in humans is just a side effect. The Master says that the Doctor finds out about her presence, then he will attempt to stop her. The Rani then reluctantly agrees to ally with him. The Master then leaves, heading towards an old mine shaft where the Rani says the workers under her control hide out. Back in Ravensworth's office, the Doctor asks Jack's son about his father's recent behaviour. The son, Luke, says that his father was fine earlier in the day before going to the bathhouse after his shift. The Doctor and Peri then both recall the scanner reacting as they pass the bathhouse on the way into the village, and the Doctor says he will go to investigate it. He disguises himself as a miner and makes his way to the bathhouse. Meanwhile, the Master enters the old mine shaft and is attacked by one of the workers, who is being secretly controlled by the Rani. However, the Master fights back, and the Rani is forced to remotely kill the worker for fear that he will smash the vial of fluid the Master took from the lab. The other workers appear, and the Master says that it was the Doctor who used his power to kill their friend. The Rani watches the interaction through a hidden camera, but is forced to leave when she hears someone knock on the front door. She opens it, and then a group of men enter with the Doctor amongst them. The Rani then turns on the gas, and all the men fall to the floor. A short while later, the Doctor wakes up in the lab, strapped to a table, and the two Time Lords exchange backhanded greetings. The Rani reveals the presence of the Master and mocks their centuries-long feud. The Doctor compliments her on the fact that he wasn't able to find her sooner, which reveals that she has been coming to Earth for centuries to conduct her experiments. The Doctor demands that she stop, saying that humanity is not her guinea pig, but she retorts that humans are barbarians and are just as cruel to lesser life forms on their own planet. She then leaves, having spotted the Master leaving the old mine shaft on the hidden camera. As she goes, she tells her guard to kill the other test subjects if the Doctor tries to escape. The Rani then makes her way into the woods, failing to spot Peri hiding nearby. Peri enters the bathhouse and goes to help the Doctor, but he tells her about the Rani's instructions to her guard. He says that Peri can free the prisoners, but before she can do anything, the Master and Rani return. The Rani takes Peri prisoner as the Master gloats that he intends to take control of those attending the meeting and use their abilities to help create his empire. The Master's attention is then drawn to the hidden camera, which is showing the workers, led by Jack, carting the TARDIS towards the old mine shaft to destroy it in accordance with the Master's earlier orders. The Doctor commends the Rani on creating an amazing piece of holographic technology, explaining to the confused Master that the screen only shows what the viewer wants to see portrayed. The Master then forces Peri to push the Doctor stable outside, threatening to destroy the vial of fluid again when the Rani tries to interfere. They go outside and see the workers manoeuvring the TARDIS into the pit. The Doctor uses the distraction to kick the Master, and he tells Peri to push them to freedom. However, the table goes out of control and ends up in the hands of the workers, who then push it towards the pit entrance. Part 2. A man rushes out of the woods and closes the trapdoor over the pit. He goes to help the Doctor, but becomes distracted by the construction of the table and bindings on it. The Doctor asks if he is Stevenson, expressing his admiration for him when he says that he is, before urging him to release him. However, the greeting is short-lived when Peri arrives pursued by more of Rani's puppets. The trio run into the woods and make their way to Stevenson's workshop, where they also find Luke. Once inside, the Doctor reveals that the workers aren't Luddites and suggests that Stevenson have the meeting called off to ensure the safety of the attendees. Stevenson reluctantly agrees and tells Luke to ask Ravenscroft to send out word. However, en route to the office, Luke is apprehended by the Master and hypnotized. He orders Luke to make sure that the meeting goes ahead. The master then goes back to the bathhouse, where he convinces the Rani to assist him in his plans to capture the meeting's attendees by promising to share Earth with her for her experiments. Meanwhile, the Doctor and Peri make their way to the pit to try and find a way to get the TARDIS out of it. They are suddenly attacked by some of the enslaved workers, but they are saved by some of Ravensworth's men. The captured men are brought to Ravensworth's office, and he orders them to be tied up whilst he goes to summon the local militia. He then goes to Stevenson's workshop, but he's stopped by Luke, who says that Stevenson has gone to the pit. Ravensworth expresses his opinion that the meeting should be called off, but Luke says that Stevenson wants us to go ahead. Ravensworth reluctantly agrees and goes back to his office. Elsewhere, the Doctor brings Peri to the bathhouse so they can investigate it. Peri says that they should focus on getting the TARDIS back, reminding him again of the multiple attempts on his life, but the Doctor continues to look around. They find the dead bodies of the Rani's assistants, which she killed when she left with the Master. The Doctor sees a nearby cabinet and checks it to see if it is booby-trapped. However, the booby trap proves to be mustard gas, and he and Peri quickly put on a pair of nearby gas masks. Once the gas dissipates, the Doctor opens the cabinet, which turns out to be the Rani's TARDIS. They take a look around, but suddenly the TARDIS starts to dematerialize, and the Doctor tells Peri to get out before it takes off whilst he stays behind. The ship lands a few moments later, and the Doctor hides as the Rani and the Master enter. He listens to them as they plan to get rid of him and Stevenson before going further into the TARDIS. He then comes out of hiding and starts to sabotage the power console before leaving a short while later. Meanwhile, Peri is brought to Ravensworth's office, who demands to know where the Doctor is, but she says that she doesn't know. She says that she will go to the pit to look for him. She finds no sign of him there and morosely contemplates being stuck in the 1800s. However, the Doctor suddenly appears and she tells him that Ravensworth wants to see him, and they go back to his office. Once there, the Doctor tells Ravensworth that the reason that the men are acting so aggressively is that they can no longer sleep, which is caused by the Rani's fluid extraction process. Luke suddenly appears and the Doctor asks after Stevenson. Luke, having earlier falsely told Stevenson that one of the meeting attendees was stranded on the road, says that he hasn't seen him. The Doctor quickly leaves after seeing something strange in Luke's behaviour. He encounters Stevenson as he prepares to go to rescue his stranded colleague, and he offers to go in his stead, warning Stevenson not to trust Luke while he is gone. Back in his office, Ravensworth says that they need to try and get the men to sleep, and Peri says that she could brew a sleeping draught but needs to find the right herbs. Luke says that he will take her to find them, and they leave together. Meanwhile, the Master and the Rani return to her TARDIS after laying a series of booby traps for the Doctor in the nearby woods. She quickly pours some liquid over the embryo of a creature and says the Doctor will soon be dead. They then head back into the woods and they spot Peri and Luke gathering herbs. The Master prepares to kill Luke with his tissue decompressor, but he is stopped by the Doctor, who disarms him. The Doctor then asks to know what traps they laid for him in the woods, and they watch as Luke steps on one of the booby traps, which transforms him into a tree. The Doctor angrily confronts the Master, saying that he is responsible for Luke's death, but the Rani callously says that he is better off as a tree. The Doctor ushers them onwards, threatening them with the tissue decompressor. They suddenly hear Peri screams from nearby and watch as she is grabbed by the tree that was once Luke. However, the Doctor tells her that she is all right, having noticed that the tree was saving her from stepping on one of the booby traps. The Doctor forces the Rani to retrieve Peri, knowing that she knows the way past the booby traps. The Doctor then forces them onwards again, but they see a crowd of maddened workers running through the trees. The Rani prepares to kill them, but the Doctor stops her. Peri says they need to warn the workers about the booby traps, and the two renegade Time Lords gloat over the Doctor's moral quandary. Peri takes the tissue decompressor, and the Doctor tells her to take them to the old mine pit, and then goes to stop the workers. The Doctor tries to reason them, but instead they capture him and tie him to a pole before carrying him onwards. He begs them to listen to him, but to no avail. Suddenly, the men carrying the pole both step onto booby traps and transform into trees, causing the others to flee in terror, whilst the Doctor is left stranded above another trap. Meanwhile, Peri leads the Master and the Rani into the old mine pit and says that they will wait for the Doctor. The Master tries to hypnotize her, but she manages to resist, having been warned by the Doctor earlier. The Rani mockingly laughs at him, but suddenly starts to choke. The Master says that she is having a seizure and needs her medicine. Peri reluctantly lets the Rani reach for her pill, but she instead crushes it into powder, which she flings at Peri, knocking her out. The Rani then says that they should leave, but the Master says that he wants to kill the Doctor first. They trade insults back and forth, and the Rani demands that he give her back the vial of fluid so she can leave. However, they are interrupted by the Doctor, who managed to free himself and avoid the booby traps. He houses Peri up and says that they need to get the two renegade Time Lords out of the Rani's TARDIS. They make their way down the tunnels, but they are ambushed by the Master, who tries to kill them with the tissue decompressor. However, he misses and accidentally triggers a cave-in, forcing him and the Rani into her TARDIS whilst the Doctor and Peri run to the surface. Outside the mine, the Doctor assures Peri that they are safe and reveals his sabotage of the Rani's TARDIS, saying that he damaged the velocity regulator. In her TARDIS, the Rani and the Master bicker back and forth as they try to repair the damage whilst the ship continually picks up speed. The embryo that the Rani was earlier working on suddenly starts to grow as a result of the acceleration distortion, revealing it to be a mutated T-Rex. The two renegade Time Lords are forced to watch in horror as they are powerless to move due to the gravitational force caused by their speed. Back in the village, Peri says that they need to work on the sleeping draft, but the Doctor produces the fluid vial, revealing that he managed to pick the Master's pocket earlier. Peri says that they still need to retrieve the TARDIS, but the Doctor leads her to Stevenson's workshop. Inside, they see Stevenson and Ravensworth examining it after Stevenson managed to retrieve it. Peri gives Ravensworth the fluid, and the Doctor wishes Stevenson all the best with his work, making a joke about his inventions that will take off like rockets. Peri comments on his terrible humour, and the duo enter the TARDIS, leaving the bemused Ravensworth and Stevenson to watch as it dematerializes. End of the story. So, we now have another Time Lord, or in this case, Time Lady, added to the canon. But I wonder what the trivia is surrounding this. Trish, over to you.
Thank you very much. Okay, the air date for The Mark of the Rani is the 2nd to the 9th of February 1985. We have two writers this week, Philip, but called Pip, and Jane Baker. Pip and Jane were a husband and wife writing team who wrote 4 Doctor Who stories together. We'll see their work again in Terror of the Vervoids. Did I pronounce that right?
That's correct.
The Ultimate Foe, which they only did one part of it, but they did part of it. And Time and the Rani. Spoiler. Jane passed away in 2014 and Pip passed away in 2020. The director of the story is Sarah Hellings. This is Sarah's only Doctor Who directing credit. This is the last story of the original series of Doctor Who to be directed by a woman, which, given how much is left in the series, not going to lie, is a bit disheartening. I do have an interesting observation about this. So, as long-term listeners know, I, when available, watch the Blu-ray versions of these, which have the behind the sofa segment. So I was watching this, and when the credits came up with, directed by Sarah Hellings, Janet Fielding got really excited because she knew Sarah from a women in directing or women in production thing that Janet used to run. And Peter Davison was like, she's like, oh, a female director. And he's like, why is that a big thing? Why isn't it like, ooh, it's a male director? And she was like, because it was a really big deal. It didn't happen that often in Doctor Who. I don't think we had a single male director the whole time we worked on it. And it was just this really awkward experience where he was like, oh, but it's flipped now. And I'm like, Peter, your misogyny is showing. Wait, please.
Oh, fucking shit.
It's a really awkward conversation. But yeah, so this is actually the last story directed by a woman up until, and I didn't even realize it was the case, up until Blink. Apparently.
Oh.
That is long.
That's
Blink is season 3. Like
we're on story 139 or 139. Blink is like almost 200.
Like if you imagine, we have the rest of Colin's era, we have all of Sylvester's era, we have the movie, all of Christopher Eccleston's era, and David's first season and a half. So before we get to Blink.
Yeah, Blink is story 186. We're on 139. So yes, there are 45 stories to go.
Bananas.
45 stories over I think of 22-year gap.
Yeah. So yeah, Peter, we could enjoy it.
Mhm.
This story had the working titles of Too Clever by Far and Enter the Rani. I kind of like Too Clever by Far. It does have, I think we've talked before about some of like the alternative working titles. It
Yes.
does have a little bit of like a TOS Star Trek original series like title
Yeah.
vibe to it.
Mhm.
But I like it. I like it. Um, Pip and Jane were apparently initially reluctant to write for the series, but Eric Soward, who is our script editor, suggested that they might attempt an adventure with a historical setting to kind of entice them in.
Mhm.
Again, historical is kind of a weird, iffy thing, and this isn't strictly a historical story because there is sci-fi elements in it.
It's the
Um,
pseudo historicals.
yeah. But they decided to develop a narrative around the Luddite uprisings as a backdrop, and then they wanted to contrast that with the achievements of George Stevenson. So that was sort of like really where the story came from, and everything else kind of popped up around that. The Rani's character came from a friend of theirs, who was a chemist, who apparently one day said, "All you are is chemicals." To which another friend replied, "But what about the soul?" And that sort of gave them this inspiration for this sort of science-driven character. The experimentation with sleep centers of the human brain came from an article that they'd read in the New Scientist, and apparently they kind of got a lot of backlash with the pseudoscience. But apparently they'd actually done a lot of research into like the conceptual idea of like why do we sleep and what happens when we sleep. But it's very similar to what was the TNG episode where they couldn't sleep?
Oh fuck! I can't think. I'm looking up there. One sec.
Yeah. But it's a very similar concept to that. The idea being that humans need sleep in order to essentially not go mental. Uh,
Night terrors. It's called.
Night terrors, that was the one. So it's a very sort of similar concept to that.
Mhm.
And apparently they did a lot of research. They reached out to a lot of people. They had to make it obviously accessible for a Doctor Who audience, but they wanted it to be somewhat rational, if
Yeah.
not necessarily believable, which I think they did a good job.
Like the lack of sleep or sleep deprivation studies are always interesting because you obviously hear like that, like the creepypasta, the Russian sleep experiment, like and apparently it's like if you go like 86 hours or something like that without sleep in one go, like you're clinically bordering into the insanity or something, or clinical insanity.
Yeah, the most I know about that was from a early Law and Order SVU episode with Mila Kunis. I think it was
Mm.
Mila Kunis in it, where they had like a high school kid who killed someone or whatever, and she didn't remember doing it. And she mentioned that she'd been awake for something like 80 hours or something like that. And their thing was like, well, it's clinical insanity at that point.
Yeah, maybe that might be it because like the longest I've ever gone without sleep is 74 hours.
I've never gone that long. I think mine's probably in the 50 to 60. And I do remember what it was for. It was for my quantum physics exam in college. And I came home from that exam, which was a horrendous exam.
Hmm.
Passed it, but it was horrendous. I came home at like 4 o'clock in the afternoon, went to bed, and slept until 6 p.m. like the following day. I was
Yeah,
out.
my thing was I was just starting getting used like to working in 4 star. Like it was just like with the stagger start hours and the late hours and everything. It was just my body just wasn't going to sleep, and I eventually
Yeah.
crashed for like when I did go to sleep. I slept for like 15 hours.
Yeah. Um, in terms of the Rani, so we have Kate O'Mara. I'll talk to her, about her a bit more in a bit. She really enjoyed the shoot. Um, a kind of a sad thing though is that she found when she was in her old woman makeup
Yeah.
that it was so good that she was completely ignored by people
Oh.
and not offered a seat or anything else. And apparently, the whole experience made her feel really sorry for old people and how society treats them. Was like this sort of like, holy shit, kind of awakening moment.
Hmm.
We also had some interesting. interactions and injuries. So apparently, I say apparently because there's no site sourced for two of these things. I'll explain the third one because there's a source for that one. But the first one is that Nicola Bryant apparently hurt her neck while sleeping. And so between shots, she had to wear a brace around her neck and just took it off just before the camera started rolling. The other is when the doctor dirties up his face before going to the bathhouse. Apparently, he smeared dog shite on his face.
No.
Again, there's no source cited for this piece of information. But why would someone make that up? It's so random. The one thing is we do have... Yeah, go on.
I was going to say, this is the Colin biting Nicola on the arse thing again, isn't it?
The one thing we do have a source for, which is Colin himself, on the Blu-ray Behind the Sofa series, is that he did all his own stunts. So him being strapped to the cart and wheeled down an incline, that was Colin, strapped to a cart, being wheeled down an incline. But what you didn't see was in the bottom of that box that he's on, there was actually a guy with a little like steering wheel to sort of like turn the wheels in the right direction.
Nice.
But what he also did was, if you imagine, like, so early on when he first, or the second time he interacts with who we think at this time are the Luddites, he leaps and he, to prevent himself from falling into the pit, he grabs onto the chain. His pinky finger actually got stuck in the chain and he dislocated his pinky finger, and apparently it still hurts him to this day. And it kind of reminds me of my dad's finger. The tree scene, the tree groping Peri. People have criticized it. Apparently, Pip and Jane Baker took the blame for it and said they never would have put it in, or they would have changed it to something else if they didn't think it would work well with the budget that was available. Now, personally, I didn't think it was that bad.
Like, wait, people are saying that the tree is groping Peri.
Well, people are saying, it looks like the tree is groping Peri. Now, obviously, in the story, it's no longer mind-controlled Luke, stopping Peri from going further and also turning into a tree. But it's just the effect of it. And like what it looked like and stuff like that. I think the fact that it just looked a bit janky. I thought it looked fine. I thought the quality of it was good enough. I mean, it wasn't fucking the fear-inducing thing of The Wizard of Oz. No. But apparently they sort of were like, okay, we probably wouldn't have put that in if we thought that's what it was going to look like. There was delays due to an error by the BBC schedulers, which lost the serial 2 of its 5 production days. However, Jonathan Turner was at the front of the queue when there was meant to be, I don't know if it was a show or a movie, was meant to be filming in this particular location. And they cancelled it. And so there was film staff and crew available. And so the higher ups of the BBC were like, hey, we haven't. Jonathan Turner was like, I'll take it. I'll take it. Please and thank you, I'll take it. According to Colin, it did rain a lot though, which is why some scenes that should be outside had to be redone in the studio just because of the rain. The following credit appears in both episodes, which is the BBC wished to acknowledge the cooperation of the Ironbridge Gorge Museum. The episode was filmed in Ironbridge. Which, if it's the same Ironbridge I'm thinking about, is where me and my friends stayed when we went to Wales Comic Con. Which, fun fact, Wales Comic Con, not in Wales.
Yep.
In Tilford. Anyway, let's go on to our cast. So, returning as the Master, we have Anthony Ainley. He's here for his 9th appearance as the Master. We previously saw him as the Master in The Keeper of Traken, Vergopolis, Castrovalva, Time of Life, King's Demons, Five Doctors, Planet of Fire, and most recently in the Caves of Androzani. We will see him again. That's all I'm going to say.
Yes.
As the Rani, we have the previously mentioned Kate O'Hara. This is her first Doctor Who acting credit. Oh, they kind of spoil it. O'Mara. What is it? Did I say O'Hara? Kate O'Mara.
Yeah.
This is her first Doctor Who acting credit. I did kind of spoil it earlier. We will see her again. She would also go on to appear in Dimensions in Time, which was one of the specials that they did. And she also did some Doctor Who voice audio story work. Outside of Doctor Who, Kate's probably most well known for her role in Dynasty, which she did around this time. On the Behind the Sofa, Janet was saying that she didn't think that her Dynasty may have been filming around the same time, but hadn't aired yet.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so she went on to be in Dynasty. She was also in Danger Man, The Saint, The Avengers, Howard's Way, and The Brothers. In 2014, there were plans to bring back Kate O'Mara as the Rani for a new Big Finish Productions audio series. But Kate passed away a few weeks before recording began. However, having been assured of Kate's desire that they continue the project without her, and that her blessing was given, Big Finish hired Siobhan Redmond to play a new incarnation of the Rani. So I think taking some of the stories they planned to do with Kate, but giving the Rani new life in audio.
I have a funny, because I was looking up to see, like, I'd seen Kate O'Mara in some other stuff. I knew I had. So she appeared in an old Hammer horror vampire movie with Ingrid Pitt, who has been in Doctor Who before. And apparently there's a scene where Ingrid Pitt as a vampire tries to bite Kate, but her fake fangs kept falling into Kate's cleavage, so they couldn't get the shot because they kept bursting out laughing.
Very good, very good.
Yeah.
3 more people we're going to talk about, but only really in trivia, because to be honest, their characters aren't really big enough. They're not really the focus of the story, let's be honest.
No.
So, as Lord Ravensworth, we have Terence Alexander. Only Doctor Who acting credit for Terence. His non-Who credits include Bergerac, The Day of the Jackal, Gary Halliday, and the Forsyte Saga. Terence passed away in 2009. George Stevenson is played by, I'm going to butcher his name, Gawn Granger? I don't know if it's a Welsh name. I'm going to go with, it's Gawn. My apologies, but butchered his name. Only Doctor Who acting credit again. His non-Who credits include The March of the Peasants, No Hiding Place, Paul of Tarsus, Softly Softly Task Force, The O'Needle Line. We haven't heard those 2 mentioned in a hot minute.
No, we haven't.
Taggart and Agatha Christie's Poirot. Lastly, as Luke Ward, we have Gary Cady. Only Doctor Who acting credit for Gary. His non-Who credits include Brass, Journey's End, Eric the Viking, Coronation Street, and As Time Goes By.
I'll say it again, Eric the Viking, great movie. Also, I'm just thinking, it was like, way back when, we were like, Dixon and Doc Green, ding, Z-Cars, ding, like softly, ding. Like, I was just waiting, like, when we get to the revival era, what will it be, like, Casualty, Doctors, Call the Midwife, Sherlock, yeah. Oh yeah, we'll definitely have a lot of Sherlock.
Yeah. Harry Potter.
Harry Potter.
And Game of Thrones.
Yeah. And probably Holby City and other stuff. So yeah, we should bring back the ding.
Bingo cards for the revival era.
Yeah, absolutely. So, summary done. Thank me. Trivia done. Thank you. Now we come on to the meat and bones of the podcast, which is the character discussion, where myself and Trish usually will discuss the Doctor, the companions, prominent characters, but here we don't have any, I would say. I would have maybe, like, at a push gone with Ravensworth, because it's nice to see, like, an aristocrat that, and in this time period, that isn't an absolute prick towards the working class. But even then, nothing drives the plot from him. which is something that you kind of like we said last week. So that just leaves the villains, which is the Master, the Rani, and George Stevenson for taking the work out of the hands of the working men. No, just the Master and the Rani. So very light. We actually haven't. Like, have we done a 4-person character discussion since Edge of Destruction?
Probably not.
Yeah.
Probably not. Hand
That was
of
the
Fear,
first thing.
maybe?
Sarah Jane, the Doctor, Eldrad, and the guy that ran the power plant. So
Yeah.
possibly a Hand of Fear. Possibly. Right, but needless to say, it is a Gallifreyan heavy episode this time around. But as is tradition, the person that does the socials gets to go first. So Trish, please give me your thoughts on the Doctor.
Cool. I really quite like the Doctor in this one. I'm glad to see that, we've sort of seen like his development from the twin dilemma up to now. He's pretty much settled into his character now. This is the Sixth Doctor. This is who he is. He's still brash, but he's more in control and he's more balanced. I like the fact that his dynamic with Peri, he's well aware of it. It's, so there's the clip at the end where Ribbons just says, like, what do you do in that box anyway? He's like, argue, mostly. It's like, he's fully aware of it, but also he's clearly cares for her a great deal. So he's constantly trying to get her out of danger, like constantly telling her to run, telling her to leave him behind, and not in a sort of, I must protect the damsel or she's not capable, but purely in a case of like, fuck, something's bad going to happen. Peri, get away and save yourself type thing. Which I really like. I think this is a really good story particularly for Colin's Doctor, for seeing his empathy.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously it's in stark contrast to the Master and the Rani, but we've talked in previous episodes that public opinion of Colin was that his Doctor was very brash, very violent.
Mm-hmm.
And I think seeing his empathy for the miners here, along with his protective attitude towards Peri, and like particularly like when you have like the fact that the Rani recognize that, like, if he moves, don't kill. Like if the Doctor moves, don't kill him. Kill this innocent instead.
Yeah.
She picked up straight away. And I like that about Colin. I like that we can say that about Colin's Doctor, is that he does put everyone else's safety before his own. He does not want to endanger people if he doesn't have to. The fact that, like, these guys were crazy and whatever, and he still was like, Peri, you got this. I'm going to go try and save them because I don't want them transmogrifying into trees and stuff like that. Even though he knew that they wanted to kill him, he still wanted to save them and to protect them, which I think is really good. I think it marks a significant sort of line in the sand with this Doctor. The one scene that I don't think really lands, and it's a line that belongs to a different Doctor contextually, but I think could belong to this one as well, is when he comes across the Master and the Rani. He picks up the Master's zappy thing. And he basically says, don't make me forget my abhorrence for violence, basically. And you're kind of like, I totally get what you mean.
Yeah.
But watching episodes back to back,
Yeah.
your abhorrence for violence, is it? Your previous stories are calling, and they're calling bullshit. It's understandable that he would, as he's rebalancing, like as he's now fully the Doctor or whatever, it's balancing out. So I think because we watch them Well, I watched them like a
Yeah,
couple of
yeah,
weeks apart.
right.
They're a couple of weeks apart, so it's a bit easier for me. But imagine if you were watching it week on week on week on week on week,
Yeah.
it would probably be like, hold on,
Yeah.
you were
Uh,
hollering around a gun like 2 episodes ago. What are you talking about?
abhorrence for proactive violence as opposed to reactive violence, right?
Yeah, yeah. And the idea of shooting someone in cold blood, I think, is the bigger
Yeah,
difference. But yeah, so I really liked this. I really liked how he got along with Stevenson. I thought that was brilliant, and the fact that Perry were like, "Dude, we're in the middle of something else. You can play with your toys later."
yeah. Yeah.
Something else. Which I thought was really, really good as well. I'm going to talk more about the dynamic between the Doctor and the Rani and the Master, probably when I'm talking about the Rani. Overall, I really enjoyed Colin's one. I thought he did a really good performance, and I just think the Doctor in this one was just generally very good. How about you?
Mhm. Yeah, no, I agree. I agree. Like, I think this was the Doctor for the most part having fun because, like, obviously he got. I can't remember where they were meant to be going. It was like some fair or something. One of those.
The opening of Kew Gardens.
Thank you. That's what it was. I was like, going pick quick. No, no, Kew Gardens, perfect. Thank you. But then to be thrown into like essentially the Knights of the Industrial Revolution roundtable gathering, like just like Faraday, Davy, Stevenson, ooh, kind of clapping his hands like, um, but like it really is, as you say, like it's like there's two great components to this, which is the Doctor's actions and the Doctor's interactions. So, Doctor's actions here are, as you said, like it's very these poor these poor people are outside of their own control. They're not malicious by intent. There's something underfoot here. And even like it's I think he immediately calls bullshit. This is like bullshit on the whole Luddite thing. Because he's like he notices the red mark, he's like, I've seen that somewhere before. And these people don't seem to be acting like Luddites and they don't seem to be acting like hooligans. So there's something clearly up here, which is great to see. And but I think the real meat and bones in this story is the Doctor's interactions with pretty much everyone. His interactions with Peri are great, and it's just like they have their nice rapport. They're just friends. It's like yes, there's still that little bit of kind of one-upmanship or like snippy back and forth between them. Like like what should I do? Like, why don't you use some of that famous American initiative or at the thing where it's like I'm doing what you would call I'm putting on a read like if you take Nicola Bryant's accent is bad, his accent for like following a hunch is just uh but I but like it's great to see like that the solidification of the relationship that we've seen with Perry growing over the last couple of stories, which is brilliant because it's a nice character arc. And you know me, I love my character arcs. I love his interactions with Ravensworth because again, like he can see that Ravensworth is a man that, despite his station, doesn't belittle those beneath him or belittle those that work for him. You can see that he has a good relationship and he cares, especially when the wives of the men come. They're not afraid to ask Lord Ravensworth for help, and the Doctor can see that. So I think that's what he buys into trying to help him out as much as possible. Him fanboying with Stevenson is hilarious. Just like the two of them kind of hunched over the table looking at the plans. And if you do this, you might be able to get more power and things like that. Um, this is Colin's first interaction with the Master. Um, which is at this stage of the game is like a kind of like a trial by fire in some capacities for any sitting Doctor. And I think that I will get to it more is it's grand, but it is overshadowed by the Doctor's interactions with the Rani. Because there's something the way that they interact when they're on their own. It's like this in the Doctor's mind, she's really no different to the Master. because like again, renegade type characters, where she's like, "Do you know what? Look, just fuck off. I don't need your like, your high standing attitude. Just like I don't really care about what you think about me. I don't care that the two of you are locked in this like really ridiculous death struggle. Just like I'm here to do my thing." And like in a way, like it almost like he admires her lack of ambition, if that makes sense. Like he still treats her as like your, and I know that like I'm kind of more type of the Rani now, but it's like, whereas the Doctor's relationship with the Master is kind of veering into like a bit more pantomime villain. The Doctor's interaction with the Rani kind of does harken back to the earlier interactions with Delgado's Master in a bit more of a Holmes and Moriarty type vibe. But overall, like Colin's performances are absolutely fantastically consistent. Like he is fast actually on the rewatch becoming one of my favorite Doctors. In terms of the Doctor in this story, yeah, I don't think I have that much to criticize him on. I don't, which is always a nice thing to happen. So yeah, thumbs up for me.
Excellent. I actually just looked up because there was you're mentioning about how the Doctor is kind of enjoying himself. Peri has a line that she says to the Doctor, which is, for someone so obsessed with saving the world, you don't half enjoy it when things go wrong. Yeah, fair. Okay, speaking of the lady herself, let's go on to Peri. So I kind of loved the fact that the Master almost wanted to get Peri more than the Doctor.
Yeah.
He's like, I don't know this incarnation yet, but I fucking know you, bitch.
Yeah.
So something I need to explain. Peri's wearing a very interesting outfit for this entire story, which is not era accurate. Right? Because, as you mentioned, she was meant to be going to the opening of the Kew Gardens. There was a whole scene that was filmed before the scene with the two of them in the console room. There's a whole scene that was filmed that explained where they were going, why she was dressed up in this sort of like Jane Austen era outfit, rather than an outfit that was appropriate to the time period that the story is set in. That scene got cut. So Peri just looks really weird. I was like, why the fuck is she wearing that?
But like, it is time period appropriate because the Doctor says that
It's
their
too
time
early.
period is correct. Oh, the
No,
close
it's
is
too early.
early. Okay, fair enough.
Close it too early. Yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah. The Doctor was saying that they're going to the right time, but they were just the location was changed. So okay.
No,
So yeah,
the time was also
was it? Okay.
Yeah. Her clothes were too early for the time period that the story is set in.
Okay.
But yeah, this one's an interesting one for Peri because it's very much the Time Lord show.
Mm-hmm.
And Peri is there. However, that doesn't mean we don't get some really good, solid moments with her. Now, I will say she is mostly running from one end of this village to the other.
Yeah.
That's a large portion of what she does. But I love the fact that even though this woman's voice grates on my last nerve, I can't deny that Peri is courageous. 110%. She's willing to follow the Doctor into danger. She is fully able to stand up for herself and take control when she has to. Right? We'd seen that previously. Again, the whole gun thing. But she was just groped by a tree and walked out of a minefield by a woman who thinks that she is literally at the same level of intelligence as pond scum.
Mm-hmm.
And the minute she realizes the doctor's in a quandary, he can either stay with these two and see that they get their comeuppance, or he can say, she's like, I got this. She's like, I won't hesitate. I got this. And honestly, had the Rani not played her fucking coughing trick, I fully believe that Peri would have done it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I love the fact that we get to see the fact that like, because Colin's doctor is a little bit high and mighty in a similar way to like Pertwee's doctor in a way, a little bit of Tom and that sort of like existing up here, the arrogance and stuff, that Peri is like, pardon my friend, he's very eccentric.
Yeah.
And she's connecting on the individual level, which is lovely to see. Because it helps her be involved in the plot, even if she's not driving plot. She still gets to be an active participant, which is good. All her interactions with the locals I thought were lovely. I do think her interactions with the master and the Rani, so she doesn't have much. Again, she holds her own very, very well, which I think is great. And then there's the dynamic with the doctor. And like I said this when I was talking about the doctor, their dynamic has kind of gone from weirdly adversarial or not really knowing do they like each other to this kind of older brother, younger sister sort of thing. It's very much banter, very much taking the mick out of each other. And like I said, like he owns up to it, like what to do in the black box, argue mostly, and she just sort of nods, goes, "Yeah, fuck, well, that's pretty much it." But clearly, she cares for him as much as he cares for her. She rolls him on the thing. Bear in mind, he said push. He didn't say what fucking direction, and then give out to her for pushing it. Bitch face. But she took off like a fucking cheetah trying to catch him, and every time he was in danger, she was rushing to try and make it better.
Yeah.
Despite what he tried to do and keep her away. There is one scene that is a little bit weird. There's two. One, the mustard gas scene. Apparently they did that like 11 times because Nicola couldn't actually see Colin to throw him the mask. It looks a bit funny because it's like, why are they not walking towards each other? As opposed to him holding in a corner and her standing like 5 feet away and just lobbing the thing at him.
Yeah.
That one's weird. The other one is Peri knows how to craft a sleeping draft.
Yes.
That was weird. That was very weird. I was trying to remember and I forgot to look it up. Do we know what she was studying before she went traveling? Like, is she a biology person? Because she says that, like, she goes on about how, like, oh, my generation cares about the environment and whatever. But for her to say, oh, I could put together a sleeping draft for you, I'm like, babe, what were you doing in college? Like,
let's see. Let's find out. Peculiar Brown. Okay, college. Botany, apparently. Which is something that will be highlighted in a later story. But according to the TARDIS Wiki, she is a botany student.
Okay, that makes a bit more sense.
Yes.
Still a bit far-fetched, but okay. We've heard weirder shit.
Yeah.
I also really like that the master refers to her by her full name. I don't know why.
Yeah.
Because everyone calls her Peri. And I refuse to say her full name because I'll just butcher it. Yeah, I can't. Even if I see it written out before me, I can't pronounce it. So I like the fact that, like, she has her own thing with him. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I like that. I like when the companions have their own, very much like Joe and Delgado, if they had their own thing separate from the doctor thing. But yeah, overall, I think again, not a plot driver by any stretch, but certainly a good contributor to the story. Which
Mhm. Yep.
I think is very good. But you,
I also really like Perry in this one. Like, just to echo some of the things that we've already talked about, just seeing that relationship with the Doctor grow and blossom, and I'm like, I'm happy. Like, it's nice because now I can think that Perry feels safe with him. Well, like,
mm,
not when, like, obviously when they're in the height of danger, but when it's just the two of them, I get the impression that she's no longer on edge because, as we keep saying, like, she has zero problem calling him out in his bullshit. But I think now she's not calling him out as such, but just kind of saying it more like kind of like, really, really, do you think it's actually this easily done? Um, but she still has a very protective nature for the Doctor because she's like, they're repeatedly trying to kill you. Maybe we should leave. And it's, yeah, like, because again, like, no, maybe there's an element of self-preservation in that. I won't say otherwise, like that. But she's not overtly saying, "Oh, we need to leave. We need to do whatever." It's a case of like, they're trying to kill you. Maybe you should save yourself, type thing. Because like she knows that the overriding part of her head is that like this is a Luddite issue. Forgetting the temporal nature side of things, she's like, it's a Luddite issue, and we know how history went with the Luddite movement and the Industrial Revolution is the way it was. So there's that aspect of it. But where I love seeing Perry in this is outside of her amazing, when I can actually craft herbal remedies from local wildlife flowers, uh, is those interactions with the master, because you have like the master there, that kind of like growling and baring his teeth like perpigilium grow, and she's like pretty much like, fingers up, what of it, bitch. um yeah, like, just like pretty much like I could just imagine her like just like flashing gang signs with all this kind of stuff, like, or just even like kind of going, come on, what you got for me. And I love like when the Doctor gives her the tissue decompressor to, like, you bring them back to the mine shaft, and he gives her like he whispers something to her, and she kind of rolls her eyes, a case of like, yeah, like, well, I was going to expect that type of thing. And then later on, the master tries to hypnotize her. She's like, nah, he warned me, so back off. I definitely would have loved to have seen, and it's a point that I'm going to bring up shortly. I would have loved to have seen her have a lot more interactions with the Rani,
mm,
or even like solo sections with the Rani, because this is the first time where a female, or sorry, where a time lady or a female time lord, whichever way you want to classify the Rani, this is the first time where a female companion would have been exposed to that. Because
mm.
the only other time we've seen a female Time Lord was Romana, who was a companion. So seeing, like, not even just like the opposite gender, but a villain, like the opposite of the Doctor's ideology, I think that would be like great for like at least 20 minutes of the runtime for a companion to have with the villain of the piece. So yeah, a bit would have liked to have seen more about that. But yeah, like I just honestly, I think like this, like, Perry is really, really kind of standing on her own feet, and it's nice to see that. I think the one thing where I was like a bit, come on, because we've seen Perry like be like protective and like standing up for herself, not a bar. Well, I think it was just like maybe the really awkward filming where like the Doctor is hanging over the pit and the guys are trying to push him in, and she's just very kind of limply throwing uh, pieces of coal at them, going, "Stop it, stop it!" And I'm like I, like, surely to God, like, you would have picked up like a piece of timber, like clacked the legs out from underneath them or something like that. Because like I've seen you do stuff like that.
I think in her defense on that one,
Yeah, yeah.
I think there's a little bit of fight and flight combating with each other
Hmm.
because you've got horde of guys
True. Yeah.
and a giant pit to nowhere.
Yeah.
So I think what she was trying to do was delay them until help
Possibly.
would arrive.
Maybe, or maybe it's just a thing of like just the direction of that scene didn't
Yeah.
work as way it should have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it could also been that Nicola was afraid to actually brain someone with a piece of coal.
True. Absolutely. Yeah. That's also very true. But like, if that's the worst that I'm saying about Perry in this, then fair. Like, and again, I mentioned this maybe a couple of stories back, but it's great to see like a character whose marketing is overtly sexual, and then you're watching it be her sexuality or her appearance is like the least commentable thing about her in the stories,
Yeah.
Yeah. So, villains.
Okay, let's do the master first, then we'll leave the Rani for
Yeah. I was going to say, I hope.
the big finale.
Yes.
So Colin Baker made a comment in the Behind the Sofa for this episode, which I can see why, which is Anthony Ainley. So playing the master, if he could play the master for the rest of his life, he would have been happy.
Yeah.
He loved it. He really did. Apparently he didn't like this story very much.
Okay.
Because he very much felt like the master was playing second fiddle to the Rani.
Mm-hmm.
And I agree with him. The master is really underdeveloped in this story.
Mm-hmm.
We don't even really get an explanation of why was he there. We don't know.
Mm.
He pulls the doctor off course, the Rani calls him on it. But we don't know why. And is it coincidence that she was also there? We don't know. Also, where's his TARDIS?
Yeah.
No one knows. So I think the master's involvement could have done with just another couple of minutes, nothing massive, but like a scene or two to explain why he was there, why he decided to pull the doctor off course, that whole setup. Because, unfortunately, he can't hold a fucking flame to the Rani. We'll talk about her in a minute.
Mm-hmm.
And he comes across as very pantomime. Which we've always said the master is kind of pantomime, but again, in the comparison, he comes across as very pantomime. Now, I say that while also highlighting the fact that he does manipulate her very easily. He gets the little worm things away from her. He gets the vial away from her. He's pulling, even though it's kind of him piggybacking on what she's doing, he's the one pulling her in to his doctor love-hate relationship against her fucking will because she doesn't fucking want to get involved.
Yeah.
So he still has power. He's not completely powerless. He's not been completely, had the legs thrown from under him. But he's very much redundant. You could take him out of the story completely and nothing would change.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing. The only thing that would be slightly different is Luke. Luke is the only thing that would change if you took the master out of the story.
Yeah.
Everything else works fundamentally the same way. Would the gang of guys still have teamed up against the doctor? Probably, because seeing him using machinery and wanting to talk to Stevenson, that's still going to trigger that stuff in their minds.
Yeah.
So yeah. So I think he's a bit underutilized. That's not Anthony's fault. Like, Anthony played it brilliantly. He just wasn't given, in my opinion, a lot to work with. However, the scenes with him and Colin were great. The scenes with him and the Rani were really good. They were really fun to watch. It was a really fun, funny interaction. The verbal sparring between him and the Rani is brilliant. There's so much sarcasm and disdain. You can tell that he both really admires her but also really resents her at the same time. Do you know, he kind of It's like, do I want to kiss her, or do I want to be her, or do I want to kill her? He's sort of like stuck
Yeah.
in that like triangle. Um, so yeah, I think Andy did a great performance. I just think the master scene just sort of shoehorned in, which is a bit unfair because I would have loved to have a scene at the beginning of, say, his TARDIS crashes or something like that. She finds him as the two of them working together from the off.
Mm.
But then because he can't help himself, behind her back, he lures the doctor off course. And she's like, for fuck's sake. Like, something like that. I think there's a motive there that was missing, or like a
Mm-hmm.
impetus that was missing. Because the first we see of him, he's channeling John Pertwee and pretending to be Ursula Gummidge.
Yeah.
And it's like, why are you pretending to be Ursula Gummidge? Why are you a scarecrow? What the fuck was the point in that? None of that gets explained.
Why is it always do with the stupid fucking disguises when no one knows you're there? It's always
Yeah.
why?
So that's my thing. Like, was it a good performance by Anthony? Yeah, his performances aren't great. He's a very good actor. But I agree with him that it's kind of redundant. How about you?
Fucking prick. Not the dog. Why did you have to kill the dog?
Yeah.
Bastard. You know,
Forgives you for wearing the fucking Mrs. Dad's face.
yeah.
To kill
Not
the dog.
not the dog. Not the dog. In all seriousness though, I'm kind of torn because I don't know whether it was just by virtue of the fact it was the story. But I was like, am I getting tired of at least Anthony's rendition of the Master? Or is it just that this story he felt so out of place that it makes me feel like I'm getting tired of it? Because
Let me ask you a challenging thing while you're thinking that through, right? Let me ask you a thing. Because the Rani mentioned something which is very interesting, which is the last I heard you'd burned to a crisp.
Yeah.
If they had explained how he survived his last thing,
Yeah.
do you think it would have been like, if they explained how he keeps coming back and how he keeps surviving, other than he's like a fucking cockroach? Do you think your dilemma of am I getting tired of him would still be the same?
I honestly don't know because like it's it it might be just stemming from the fact that even if they gave an explanation as to how he survived, like he's shoehorned into the story, and it's like, or it comes across that way. Like, and there's even bits there where it's like, you know, the bit where he's like taking the Rani stuff, like taking the maggots, he's wrestling with the things, and I'm just like, part of my head is like, it's like an older sibling coming in and musting in your territory, like just going, "Would you just fuck off?" Um, which again, like isn't a kind of a fair thing to do because like Anthony has had some really good performances as the man. Like Anthony as a performer, great, can't fault him at all. But his version of the Master is doing things that kind of gets on my nerves, and like I'm going back and I was kind of thinking that too. Okay, cross comparison of Masters. We had Roger Delgado, who was also in quite a lot of stories, but for the most part, Roger's Doctor or Roger's Master wasn't as panto slash mustachy twirly of a villain. He was just as much of an idiot because of his whole thing of like, I'm going to trust the other villain of this, the other invasion force of this story, and watch them fuck me over, and then I'll shake my fist as I run off into the distance. Whereas with here, it's like almost like Pinky in the Brain, where it's like these overtly elaborate schemes that are doomed to fail. And also, why the fuck are you wearing a costume? Um, so, which again is kind of a shame because Anthony has some very good dialogue moments with the characters, like, you know, especially with the companions. Like he's had some good stuff with Tegan. He is I love his little, almost like one-sided rivalry with Perry. Where she like, again doesn't care, but he's got a vendetta for her type thing. Understandable why he has a vendetta for her, but it's like a bit. But in terms of his motivation for the story and his just placement in the story, I was feeling a small bit of resentment because I was like, I would have much rather just a story focusing on the Rani.
Mm.
So that is absolutely clouding my judgment on the character in this story. Because again, as I said, I've enjoyed Antony's performance when he has the dialogue moments. Absolutely, some really good stuff there. But in terms of like maybe overly saturated amongst his appearances, which again I know is a weird thing to say, seeing as how you had Roger Delgado's Master so saturated for just one Doctor's run.
Mm.
But I think it's the presentation is slightly different, and I had a bit more truck with it there.
Mm.
So yeah, conflicted feelings about the Master in this one.
Yeah, understandable as well.
Now,
So,
the woman herself.
the woman herself, I really like her. I really like her. So, to give a bit of context, right? I have been watching Doctor Who for numerous years at this point. And I was introduced to the Master through the revival era, so through the Russell T Davies era. I liked him, but I didn't think he was the best villain ever.
Yeah.
A little bit over emphasized for my liking, right? And there's been the Sasha Dewan Master, and there was Missy, and whatever. All have their strengths. So it's the same Master over. All have their strengths, whatever. But I've never really sort of was like, oh, this is a challenging character, a good rival, etc. Then we went back and we watched Roger Delgado. I was like, oh, he's really cool. Those two clearly had a thing in college or something because, like, whatever. And then we go through and then we got Anthony and I'm like, stop wearing her dad's face. What the
Yeah.
fuck? But to be honest, I've always found the Doctor Master dynamic to be a little bit nah.
Mm-hmm.
Because the Master's been around as a villain for so long. And it's not like Davros, who comes and goes and comes back and there's like large gaps between Davros appearances. Is the Master's the villain on their own. So to have the Rani come in, who's also from Gallifrey, really smart, really intelligent, and doesn't feel like she's walked out of either a rom-com or a pantomime, is like a massive breath of fresh air. I'm like, okay, similar to the way, with Romana and the Doctor, we had a companion fully on the Doctor's level. More so than Zoe was, because they're the same species, they're from the same planet. Here I think with the Rani, we actually get a villain on par with the Doctor, because she is his counter in all the ways that I don't think the Master is, which is that she has similarities. So she's very brilliant. She's a scientist, all kinds of stuff. But she's also cold and utilitarian. Her thing of animal matter was transformed into vegetable matter or into plant matter. It's still alive. I didn't kill him. I just, there's something about her. The fact that she's purely motivated by science. She's never any nostalgia or emotional ties to anything or anyone. She's just doing her own thing. And I'm like, you are a challenge because you're not driven by emotion. And you have ego, but you're not driven by your ego, if that makes sense. No, she was perfectly, like, the Doctor turned up. She would have been perfectly happy to pack up, move to a different time zone, move on with her life. It's like, cool, I don't need your fucking drama around me. So I really like her. I love the way she is with the Master. You're imbalanced. No wonder the doctor always outwits you. And she says it with like such a straight face.
Yeah.
Like it's just witty fucking commentary. Like and it's so meta. Where
And
she's
he
like,
doesn't even she
yeah,
doesn't even give him the courtesy of looking at him when she says it.
no.
She's doing the experiment. I'm like, ouch.
Um, and she doesn't even yell or anything. It's just a statement. Um, her contempt for him, the master, and for their dynamic is so clear. It's like, you have a pathological obsession with opposing each other. You're as bad as each other. You know, and she just has so many witty fucking one-liners and
Yeah.
comebacks, and she's just really fun,
Yeah.
but also scary as fuck
Mm.
because she is not swayed by emotion whatsoever. I'm going to plant a load of mines. Are they going to blow people up? No, they're going to fucking turn you into a tree. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we find out that she actually rules her own planet,
Mm-hmm.
but she kind of fucked up because she made her people not able to dream. She's like, shit.
Yeah.
So she has to get the essence from like humans and put it in. And she's been doing this for centuries,
Mm-hmm.
popping in to like really busy periods where there's a lot of upheaval and no one's going to notice, a handful of guys going bananas. Cool, take what I need, dip out. Also, I love how she calls her minions by their names.
Yeah.
They're mind controlled completely to the
Mm-hmm.
point where it's like freeze and they actually stop like halfway
Yeah.
through an action. But she still calls them by their names,
Mm-hmm.
which is an interesting thing because while she's not driven by emotion, she sees all life on the same level.
Yeah.
Which is beneath her, but
Mm-hmm.
level playing field like across the board. Do you know? So yeah, and I think she's a very rare female villain in science fiction. She isn't overly sexualized. I mean, she spends the majority of the story in her old woman get up, like in the old woman dress, whatever.
Yeah.
She's not overly emotionalized either.
No.
We don't get any tragic backstory, nothing like that. I mean, the doctor at one point says they shouldn't have exiled you, they should have locked you in a padded room. Like,
Yeah.
fucking brilliant. Her motivations are logical and chilling, which is I need the thing, they give me the thing, I take the thing and I leave.
Mm-hmm.
She has no qualms about killing people that are going to get in the way of her plan, but that's not her driving force either. So like I don't know, I just really enjoyed her and like I would have much preferred to have, you know, 6 more stories with her in it than half of the master stuff
Mm-hmm.
that we have gotten and will continue to get through to the
Yeah.
modern day. Um, I just really like her. I thought she was really cool. Also, Rani means the queen in
I
Hindi.
think so. I think so.
Which I love. That like she's just the queen. It's like fuck it. How about you? What did you think about her?
So yeah, no, like I'm right there with you. Like she was a great character. Lots of different like facets. Absolutely, like her. It's like it's not cruel. It's not cruel, but it's also not cruel in the sense of like I'm doing a thing that will suit my purpose. Everything, as you say, like the way that I am to humans is no different than the way that humans are to the beasts in the fields or anything
Mm.
like that. So, it's no ends or difference to me. Um, but like, it's, I loved her interactions with both the doctor and the master, and then when they're together, and she's like, please, for the love of God, don't drag me into your stupid petty bullshit because I do not have time. I don't care. I don't want to care. I do not want to get involved with this. Fuck off. um, like you'd half expect her to just like kind of at some point just snap and kind of go, oh, the two of you just whip them out and measure already or something like that, because she just has no time for that.
I just remembered one of my favorite bits.
Yeah.
Um, when the Master and the Rani are escaping her TARDIS,
Yeah.
and he keeps trying to take control. And she said, does she knee him in the nads?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Pretty much, she needs him in the bollocks. um, but like the one thing that I love, I, it was such a really good script choice, and again, I think a great credit to the direction and the camera work on this one. But when the Doctor's strapped to the table, and like you said that she's not overly sexualized as a villain, but one thing that I have always found with Kate O'Mara is that she has a very seductive and sultry nature to her. Just in her she doesn't need to act sexual to be sexual. If you get me, that's one thing that I've always found with her. And so, like, she's in this position of power over the Doctor, and what it is, it's like there's this wonderful aura, but she has complete control over him. But in no way is it kind of like that kind of dominatrix type to or anything like that. It's just a case of like, just sit there and shut the fuck up. And yeah, she goes like, I love the line. She goes, oh, just curse the pair of you. It's a great line to show like that she's just so fed up with their nonsensical, or as she calls it, just their petty rivalry, that like, I have important work for me. Please do not get in my way. So her just isolation from the whole thing is great. It's honestly great to see like where you do have a mad scientist villain that isn't out for world domination or complete control or something like that. It's like, I have experiments to do to take care of my own domain. Leave me alone. And that is like the Doctor, even just like, the Doctor's admiration of her cold and clinical nature is, I wanted to see so much more of it. And then when we bring Peri into the mix, and again, as I said earlier on, like, I think it was such a waste not to have more dialogue between the two, between Peri and the Rani, because it would have been so good to see. Like, there'll be an awful lot of commentary there, but like, how can you put up with the Doctor and all his like stupidity and all this kind of stuff? And like, there could have been a conversation at the time about women's empowerment, or because this is coming into the 80s now. Absolutely missed opportunity there. But I completely echo your statement in the sense of like, I'm very sad that the Rani hasn't been brought back more. I am wary of them bringing her back though, because I would like to see her brought back and handled well.
Mm.
Because I remember that there was talks of like, oh, this character could be the Rani, or they might bring the Rani back or something like that. And I'm like, at the time, I have no confidence in the writers to be able to, from my memory, I was like, I had no confidence at the time that they would be able to bring her back and treat her properly. Having rewatched it now, and still knowing what is to come, I was like, yeah, I'm still kind of glad they didn't bring her back, because I don't think they would have been able to handle her correctly.
I remember a time when season 2 of the Sarah Jane Adventures came out, and this went on right until Sarah Jane Adventures ended, particularly when season 2 came out, and the character of Maria was replaced with the character of Rani Shantar.
Mm-hmm.
Rani's like 16 years old. She's not the Rani.
Yeah.
But you have a character called Rani in a Doctor Who property, and everyone was like,
Mm-hmm.
oh my god. And everyone was waiting for, oh my god, they're going to bring the Rani back as a villain for Sarah Jane, which I think would have been phenomenal.
Mm-hmm.
Because you have the running gag of Rani and the Rani, right?
Mm-hmm.
It never happened, but I think thinking back to New Who in its entirety, I would have trusted Sarah Jane Adventures to do it.
Yeah. Okay, so like mainline Who.
Mainline Who I probably would have been very concerned. But I would have trusted Sarah Jane Adventures to do it.
Mm-hmm. Because, like, I suppose, like, you did mention the character right now, so I suppose it's a bit of a spoiler warning, but Missy, like, I remember a lot of people were like, why didn't you just bring back the Rani? And it's like, I'm kind of glad that it didn't turn out to be the Rani because, again, what they did with Missy, I don't think would have suited the Rani's character.
No, no.
So yeah. Also, when you were saying like about like the Master, not being one of the great villains, in my head I was going, yeah, he's no Animus. You know? But yeah, but no. Welcome to the discussion point, the Rani. Well, we did one of our shorter character discussions, but again, no less fun. Now we come to the overall, where myself and Trish will give our final say and also give the story a score of 5. So, Trish, you went first on pretty much everything today. So, as is tradition.
Yes.
So, off you go.
Before I go into my thoughts, I'm going to disagree with one thing that you said.
Oh, okay.
That may sound weird given one thing that I said. Peri and the Rani.
Yes.
I think for this first introductory story,
Mm-hmm.
I like the fact they didn't interact too much.
I can understand that.
Because while I totally agree with you that there could have been good banter, there could have been really good dialogue, very witty, very sarcastic, whatever. I wouldn't like the Rani to be reduced down to, how to put it,
I get what I
two
would.
women in a story talking about a man. Do you know?
Yeah.
I don't want that. I think one of the reasons why I think the Rani works so well is because she sees everyone on the same level playing field. To her, Peri is like an amoeba.
Yeah.
Not worthy of her attention. Beyond get her out of the way because she's fucking irritating to me. Contrast that with the Master, who's like, no, she foiled my plan the last time. I hate her forever. And there's a personal vendetta. There's nothing personal about it. So I think for this story, I quite like the fact that they didn't interact too much. I think that, I don't know, so we mentioned the Ryan's coming back. I don't know if Peri's in that story. I don't know when that is. Because I haven't looked at her head.
Mm-hmm.
I think in her next story, having more of a dynamic with the female companion is great and allowed to build on the character. But I'm glad we didn't get it in the first one.
No, I actually, I completely understand where you're coming from with that. Completely understand. Yeah. Also, I will say, knowing what is going to happen in the next story, I think you are going to piss yourself at certain points in our next appearance.
In terms of the story as a whole, though, I really enjoyed this. I thought it was really fun. I'll get into the downsides in a second, but I think the dynamic with the Rani is like, the Rani is such a breath of fresh air. I don't think we've had a villain that I've loved to watch in a while. And I liked watching her. Do you know?
Yeah.
I loved everything she was doing. I just found her really interesting every time she was on screen. I go, what the fuck is she doing now? I loved how exasperated she was getting. I love, again, to the fact that she's like, look, I just want to do my thing. Fuck off. I've been doing this for centuries. Will you piss off and leave me alone? I don't want to control this planet. I have my own shit to do. Don't pull me into your bromance. I don't want to be a part of it. You know? Which I love. I think it's fantastic. Again, the Doctor was brilliant in the story. I think, again, Colin just is the Doctor, and I love it. I love that he is, because I hadn't seen any of his stuff before we've done this watch through, so I'm loving that's continuing from episode to episode.
Mm-hmm.
I think Peri did really well, not as a plot driver, but certainly as an active participant. I think the backdrop of the Luddites and everything, I thought the backdrop theming was very, very good. Again, I like the logic of why the Rani picks the places that she picks. It's very Sylvie Loki variant in Loki's setting up spot at big disasters.
Yeah.
Very much like that, which I thought was really cool. The main downside for me, though, is the master.
Mm-hmm.
Because he makes no sense why
Mm-hmm.
he's there. There's no explanation given for what was he doing, what was his plan, because he doesn't realize that all these scientists are coming together until like halfway through the story. It's not like he was there to stop that from happening. He just
Mm-hmm.
happened to be in the neighborhood, pretending to be Russell Gummidge,
Mm-hmm.
and decided he wanted his boyfriend to come and play with him for a while. Why?
Yep.
Why? And where is his TARDIS now? Is it the
Maybe it
pole?
was. Yeah, I was actually just gonna say maybe it was the pole, and he was just sitting on top of it, like sitting on the dock of a bay. Um,
I don't know.
oh,
I think this was really fun. I think we've had a lot of sort of serious stories for a while.
mm,
I think this is really fun. I did watch it over 2 nights, and
yeah.
um I liked both of them. You know, I got back yesterday, sat down at Cool episode 2, off we go. Thoroughly enjoyed it. Supporting cast were very good. But yeah, I mean the biggest letdown was just the master.
Mm-hmm.
And not Anthony by a large stretch, and even not even the dialogue. The dialogue was fucking top
Mm,
tier. Like Colin made the point that like Pip and John, they know how to write, man. They fucking the dialogue was like next level. It was so good for everybody. But
mm-hmm.
particularly the interaction with our three Time Lords, I thought that was A plus, fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
For me though, the master thing and a couple of other small things like Peri making a sleeping draft. I think it's funny she calls it a sleeping draft as well. So,
Yeah.
a couple of those niggly little bits. For me, I'm going to go 4.25.
Okay.
I was torn between a 4 and a 4.5,
Mm-hmm.
but the master bit does kind of really irritate, it kind of gets on my tits. So
Yeah.
I'm going to go 4.25. How about you?
So yeah, no, like I agree that there's a lot more positives to this story than there are negatives. Main key negative, as I have mentioned earlier on, just being the placement of the master within the story and how it made me feel. And see, the worst thing about it is that the majority of the time I'm watching the story, part of my brain is resting with my feelings about like why is the master in this story. So like that I'm actively being distracted by that as I'm watching this. Um, but for the most part, though, like a lot of positives here. Good supporting cast for even though like they're not key, huge massive plot drivers. I enjoyed Ravensworth. As I said, I liked the fact that that character archetype, George Stevenson being like this, like because you often think, because I studied history in college, and no, the only time I really looked into the Industrial Revolution was when I was in secondary school, and history textbooks that deal with the Industrial Revolution, like in secondary level education, they're kind of fucking dry. So like you can just like you just imagine like all these like renowned inventors and like pioneers of the advancements in technology are just like these sort of like starched shirts type guy, like sitting there for their fucking portraits. You never think of them that there's some guy just from Yorkshire that likes making choo-choo trains. Just like that type of thing. So seeing like that presentation of that character I thought was great. Um and also I burst myself laughing because one of the uh workers that goes crazy pulls these faces that make him look like Michael Palin from Monty Python. So like I was just like, you saw him too?
Yes. You can't not make the connection.
Yeah, it's like going like it's Michael Palin. Yeah, absolutely. Unfortunately, it's not Michael Palin, but he's the bop off him.
I did wonder if it was, and I was like,
Yeah.
well,
uh, but yeah, so the Doctor and Peri's relationship. Look, as long-term listeners will know, and new listeners, it's a thing for me that the Doctor and the companion have to have a good relationship. Look, having conflict, yeah, it's good. It's interesting. It's fun. But not when it's like detrimental or anything like that. Like where it's continually bashing on each other. So no, having them find their groove, have their little banter back and forth, but be genuinely caring for each other, it's great. Seeing Colin continually knock it out of the park in terms of his performance of the Doctor, and also seeing the Doctor have fun in this story outside of the more violent aspects of it, and also swearing dog shit in his own face. It's really good to see. And Colin is definitely climbing the ranks of my favorites. I knew that I had always liked him, but now I'm actually getting a much deeper appreciation for him. So yes, I don't think I enjoyed it as much as you did, but I still very much enjoyed it. So I have a 3.75 on it.
Not bad. Not bad at all. So that puts it as your lowest of this season, which isn't bad by any stretch, right? It's
No.
I had a look there out of curiosity.
Mm-hmm.
So we're on episode, I said 139.
Yep.
Which I gave 4.25.
Mm-hmm.
This is the highest score I have given a story since Stones of Blood, which was episode 100.
Fuck off. Really?
Nothing since Stones of Blood, which got 4.75, has gotten over a 4 from me.
Christ. Now what? I just try. Okay, so if I'm going to go back to Stones of Blood there now, right? Okay, so Stones of Blood got a 5 from me. I fucking love the Stones of Blood. It was so good. Let's see. Yeah. Okay, so 4.5 is my limit. I enjoyed Full Circle. 4.5 again. Visitation 4.25. And Earthshock 4. Yeah, so they're like Frontios 4.5. So yeah, I think a bit more. It's been ages since I've had a 5. I don't know when we'll ever get a 5 again.
I have a couple of theories for Sylvester's run that might.
Yeah, like there's an awful lot of dark horses in Sylvester's run. I would specifically say Sylvester and Ace's run.
Well, I haven't seen Sylvester and Mel, so
yeah.
Bar the one overlap story. So
yeah.
Yeah,
but you know, yeah, like maybe Colin might give me a 5. I don't know.
I don't either. And next week we have 2 doctors.
Yes, we do.
I say next week. Next time. Sorry, our schedule has been so fucked up. By the way, life is a thing. We will settle eventually.
Yes, we will.
But yeah.
Yeah. So next week is for the 2. Yep, absolutely 2 doctors. Until then, and lots of trivia next week. Can't wait for it. Or next time. Till then, guys. Bye.